This is the brand new Sony A7 IV, which is slowly and finally getting shipped out to more people around the globe. And this is the Nikon D750 released in 2014. And as we are inching towards 2022, that makes this camera almost 8 years old. And in this video, I want to see just how far camera technology has come in the recent years. And we're going to be looking a lot deeper than just the spec sheets. Now these cameras are a great match to compare, as the D750 debuted with a retail price of $22.29, whereas the A7 IV released this year for $27.29. But if you take inflation into consideration, these cameras are actually priced almost identically. Now let's take a look at the obvious things first. You get a lot more for your money with the A7 IV. The sensor has more megapixels, IBIS, advanced autofocus features, 4K 10-bit recording, and it does all of that while being smaller and lighter than this D750. Now let's get back to that sensor. On the D750 you get a 24 megapixel sensor, whereas on the A7 IV you get 33 megapixel. And while it is a pretty significant gap, you can still get beautiful and perfectly sharp pictures with the Nikon. In fact, because these are both full frame cameras, I want to see if the higher megapixels on the Sony actually hurts its high ISO performance compared to the lower pixel density on the Nikon, or did maybe Sony improve its sensor technology so much over the years that it can both have better ISO performance and higher megapixels? Let's find out. Here we can see that at comparable ISOs, the Sony does produce cleaner images, which is impressive for its pixel density. This is true when we look at them both at 100%, but the difference becomes even greater if we compare the Sony at an equal crop to the Nikon. Now let's talk about video, where the difference between these two cameras becomes even greater. Now both of these cameras can record up to 60 frames per second, but the major difference is of course that the A7 IV can do that in 4K, whereas the Nikon is limited in 1080p at the most. This of course results in a major difference in detail. If we do drop the A7 IV down to 1080p though, we can go up to 120 frames per second for some sweet slow motion. As if the Nikon isn't in enough pain already, the Sony also has sensor stabilization, which especially on unstabilized lenses greatly improves the stability of your footage. On the Sony you can even turn on active stabilization, which adds digital stabilization in camera on top of that. The Sony can also record in 10-bit 422, which combined with S-Log3 will give you much better dynamic range compared to the Nikon. Just look at this footage where the highlights are much less blown out and the shadows are much better recovered. But that doesn't mean that it's all bad for the Nikon though, especially these days where after 8 years the price of this thing has dropped significantly. You can actually pick up a used body for like $1,000 now, which is a fantastic price for this camera. In fact, there are some small things that I actually think the Nikon does better than the A7 IV. Like the overall user experience, buttons and menu system on the Nikon is in my opinion fantastic. And even though the new menu on the Sony is also pretty good, I do still prefer it on the Nikon. Even though this thing doesn't even have a touchscreen, it still is better in my opinion. Additionally, and this is a slightly less serious one, there is just something about that DSLR feel and experience. Having to look through real glass to compose your shot instead of a screen, and having that big heavy mirror move up and down every time you take a shot just adds to the experience in a way. And sure, that means that mirrorless is smaller and lighter and also quieter, and mirrorless is definitely the future, whether you like it or not. These mirrorless cameras also just feel a lot more digital while you're using it, and I'm not sure if I like that or not. Also, one last thing, so do you guys know how everybody is tooting the horn of the A7 IV to have great battery life? Now, sure, it is pretty good, but boy, it looks like everybody has forgotten about the battery life that these DSLRs get. Like, even the best mirrorless cameras out there are still no match to these DSLRs in terms of battery life, especially if you take photos. It's a lot closer in video, but still, if you're into mainly photography, these things will last you forever. And you cannot say that about a mirrorless camera. Alright, so in the end, I do think that technology in cameras is greatly improving, especially in video and also autofocusing technology. And for that reason, I have no doubt switching my daily camera to the A7 IV and leaving this thing behind. But again, that doesn't mean that the Nikon is bad, especially these days on the used market. If you're mainly into photography, this is a fantastic camera for $1,000. And to be clear, there are still many other smaller improvements on the Sony that I haven't talked about, like the flip-out touchscreen, the full-size HDMI port, the USB streaming, and loads of other smaller things. and loads of other smaller things that makes the Sony just a little bit more usable on a daily basis. Though for some reason, even till today, as we're inching towards 2022, still zero camera companies have innovated in areas that we've been asking for years now. Like for example, compatibility with Bluetooth headphones. Anybody? Or how about a fingerprint sensor on the body to protect it from theft? No? But anyways guys, if you're mostly into photography and you don't do any video, the A7IV will do a fantastic job for you, no doubt about it. But it's also probably overkill, and you might be better off looking at an older camera on the used market. The A7IV really shines as a hybrid camera and is targeted at people who do both photography and videography, like I do. And if you do a little bit of both, this might just be the best camera for that at the moment. Anyways guys, that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. Now if you have any questions about the A7IV, just make sure to drop them down below and I will try to answer all of the questions that I know about. Now don't forget to leave a like and consider subscribing if you like this video. Alright, thanks for watching. Happy New Year. See you in the next one. Peace.